The sun had long since set on the barren, crimson-streaked landscape of Zora this IV, a planet that seemed to breathe hostility with every gust of its sulfuric winds. The air shimmered with heat, and the distant echoes of explosions reverberated through the jagged cliffs like a funeral dirge for those who dared tread here. Somewhere amidst this chaos stood Captain Arlen Drake, his armor battered but still intact, streaked with dirt and alien blood. He leaned against the remnants of a shattered wall, catching his breath as he surveyed the battlefield littered with debris and fallen comrades. Arlen wasn't supposed to be here. None of them were. This was supposed to have been a routine reconnaissance mission, scout the area, gather intel, and retreat before anyone noticed their presence. But the universe rarely cared about human plans. When they stumbled upon an ancient artifact buried beneath layers of obsidian rock, everything went sideways. Within hours, they found themselves under siege by an army of biomechanical horrors, led by a ruthless warlord known only as Vortek. And now, after days of relentless fighting, it was just him and her, the warrior woman named Nixera. Nixera emerged from the smoke like a phantom, her sleek black exosuit gleaming despite the grime coating it. Her elongated limbs moved with predatory grace, each step deliberate yet fluid. She carried herself like someone born for battle, her sharp features accentuated by glowing blue markings etched into her skin, a stark contrast to her piercing golden eyes. Those eyes locked onto Arlen's face, and though she wore no expression, he could feel the weight of her gaze boring into him. "You're injured," she said, her voice low and melodic, tinged with something between concern and annoyance. It was strange how quickly humans had adapted to understanding her language. Perhaps it was some kind of neural interface embedded in their helmets, or sheer desperation forcing comprehension. Either way, communication hadn't been much of an issue between them since they'd first crossed paths. "I'll live," Arlen replied dryly, clutching at a gash on his side where one of Vortek's drones had grazed him. Blood seeped through his fingers, but adrenaline kept the pain manageable. "What about you? You look like you've seen better days." She tilted her head slightly, almost amused. "I've seen worse. But we don't have time for pleasantries." She glanced over her shoulder, toward the horizon where shadows loomed larger by the second. Reinforcements were coming, and neither of them needed to say it out loud to know what that meant. Before Arlen could respond, Nixera knelt beside him, pulling a small bundle wrapped in fabric from her belt compartment. For a moment, confusion clouded his thoughts. What could possibly be important enough to carry into such a hellish fight? Then she unwrapped it carefully, revealing a tiny infant nestled within. Its delicate features bore hints of both human and alien ancestry, its skin faintly luminescent and its miniature hands curled into fists. "This is Kale," Nixera said softly, holding the child close for a brief second before extending the bundle toward Arlen. "Take him." Arlen blinked, certain he'd misheard. "Excuse me. Kale needs to be taken somewhere safe. Away from here. Away from everything." There was a tremor in her voice now, barely perceptible but undeniable. "You're the only one I trust to do this." For several heartbeats, Arlen simply stared at her, trying to process the absurdity of the situation. A hardened soldier like himself being handed a baby? By an alien warrior queen, no less? If anyone else told him this story, he'd laugh until tears streamed down his face. Yet here he was, standing knee-deep in carnage while cradling the fate of a hybrid child in his arms. "Why me?" he finally managed to ask, his tone equal parts incredulous and defensive. "Why not one of your own people? Or, I don't know, anyone else?" Nixera's jaw tightened, her golden eyes flashing with emotion. "Because my people are either dead or enslaved. Because Vortek knows about Kale, and if he finds him—" She trailed off, her gaze dropping to the child briefly before snapping back up. "And because you've proven yourself capable of surviving against impossible odds. Even among your species, that's rare." The words stung more than any wound Arlen had suffered during the battle. Not because they were cruel, but because they were true. Over the course of their alliance, he'd watched Nixera sacrifice everything, her home, her allies, even pieces of herself, to keep moving forward. To think that she now saw him as worthy of protecting what mattered most to her was humbling, terrifying, and infuriating all at once. "What about you?" he asked, his voice rougher than intended. "If I take him, what happens to you?" Her answer came swiftly, devoid of hesitation or doubt. I stay. I hold them off. Alone, if I must. That's insane. Arlen snapped, his frustration boiling over. You can't take on an entire army by yourself. Not even you. To his surprise, Nyxera smirked, a fleeting, almost feral expression that made her look more dangerous than ever. Watch me. Before he could argue further, she pressed a device into his free hand. It resembled a gauntlet, sleek and metallic, with pulsating circuits running along its surface. This will guide you to safety. Follow the coordinates it displays. They lead to a hidden sanctuary beyond Vortex reach. Trust the machine, and it will get you there. And what about you? Arlen demanded again, gripping the gauntlet tightly. Are you just going to throw your life away? Her smirk faded, replaced by something softer but infinitely sadder. My life has always been forfeit, Arlen. From the moment I chose to defy Vortex, I knew this day would come. But Kale represents hope. A future unbound by tyranny. And that's worth dying for. There was no arguing with her, not when she spoke with such conviction. Still, Arlen couldn't shake the feeling that he was abandoning her, leaving behind someone who had become far more than just an ally. In the short time they'd fought side by side, Nyxera had shown him courage, resilience, and a fierce loyalty that transcended species. She wasn't just a warrior, she was family, whether either of them wanted to admit it. Reluctantly, Arlen adjusted his grip on the infant, ensuring Kale was secure against his chest. The child stirred slightly, letting out a soft coo that somehow cut through the cacophony of war around them. For a split second, Arlen forgot about the bloodshed, the fear, the overwhelming sense of futility. All that mattered was keeping this fragile life safe. Fine, he muttered, meeting Nyxera's gaze squarely. But if you die out there, I'm never forgiving you. Her lips curved upward again, though sadness lingered in her eyes. Fair enough. Then, without another word, she turned and sprinted toward the advancing horde, her movements blurring with speed and precision. Arlen watched her go, his heart pounding in his chest as the sounds of combat grew louder. He wanted to follow her, to fight alongside her until the bitter end. But deep down, he knew she was right. Someone had to ensure Kale survived, and that someone was him. With a heavy sigh, Arlen activated the gauntlet, its screen lighting up with a series of blinking waypoints. He took one last look at Nyxera's retreating figure, memorizing the sight of her silhouetted against the fiery sky. Then, clutching Kale tightly, he began to run. As Arlen navigated the treacherous terrain of Zorathis IV, guided by the steady glow of the gauntlet's waypoints, the gravity of his task weighed heavily upon him. The infant, Kale, nestled securely against his chest, was a silent reminder of the trust Nyxera had placed in him. Each step he took away from the battlefield felt like a betrayal, yet he knew that carrying Kale to safety was the only path forward. His mind raced with questions. What kind of sanctuary awaited them? Would they truly be safe there? And most pressing of all, how could he, a mere human soldier, protect this child from the dangers that lurked ahead? The journey was fraught with challenges. The planet's volatile environment tested his resolve at every turn. Sudden gusts of sulfur-laden wind threatened to knock him off balance, while the jagged rocks and uneven ground demanded constant vigilance. Despite these obstacles, Arlen pressed on, driven by the image of Nyxera's determined face and the quiet vulnerability of the child in his arms. As he traversed the desolate landscape, memories of his past missions flashed through his mind, each one highlighting the stark contrast between his usual role as a soldier and his current responsibility as a protector. Funny enough, he recalled a training exercise back on Earth where his squad had jokingly dubbed him Mother Hen, for his tendency to ensure everyone stayed together and safe. At the time, it had been a joke, but now, as he navigated this alien world with a real-life dependent, the nickname took on a new meaning. His thoughts often wandered to Nyxera, wondering how she was faring against the relentless forces of Vortex. Was her strength and skill enough to hold them off? Could she possibly survive such overwhelming odds? These musings brought a mix of admiration and worry, emotions he wasn't accustomed to balancing. He realized, perhaps too late, how much respect and affection he had developed for the alien warrior. Her bravery and selflessness were qualities he deeply admired, traits that transcended their differences and forged a bond he hadn't anticipated. Meanwhile, Kale remained surprisingly calm, his occasional soft noises serving as a grounding presence amidst the turmoil. Arlen marveled at the resilience of this small being, who seemed unfazed by the chaos surrounding them. It was almost humorous, considering the circumstances, how a baby could remain so composed while he, a seasoned soldier, felt his nerves stretched taut. Eventually, the gauntlet led him to a narrow canyon, its towering walls providing a semblance of shelter from the harsh winds. Here, Arlen paused to catch his breath and assess their position. The waypoints indicated that the sanctuary lay just beyond this natural corridor, hidden from view and presumably protected by whatever defenses the device promised. As he prepared to continue, a sudden noise caught his attention, a mechanical whirring sound that sent a chill down his spine. Peering cautiously around a large boulder, Arlen spotted a group of vortex drones patrolling the area. They were smaller than the ones he'd encountered before, designed for reconnaissance rather than direct combat. Still, their presence posed a significant threat. If they detected him, the alarm would be raised, and the sanctuary's location compromised. Thinking quickly, Arlen used the terrain to his advantage, moving stealthily from cover to cover. His military training kicked in, guiding his actions with precision and care. He managed to avoid detection, slipping past the drones without incident. However, the encounter left him shaken, reinforcing the reality of the danger they faced. Every step closer to safety brought new risks, and he couldn't afford to let his guard down, not even for a moment. As he resumed his journey, Arlen allowed himself a brief moment of reflection. He thought about the irony of his situation, how life had thrown him into the role of guardian, entrusted with the future of a child who represented hope in a hopeless war. It was a daunting responsibility, one he hadn't asked for but couldn't ignore. The humor in the absurdity of it all wasn't lost on him. A grunt like him, entrusted with the survival of a symbol of peace and unity. Yet, as daunting as it was, it also filled him with a sense of purpose he hadn't felt in years. With renewed determination, Arlen pushed forward, following the gauntlet's guidance toward the sanctuary. Each step brought him closer to fulfilling Nixera's trust, and perhaps, finding a way to turn the tide of this endless conflict. Little did he know, the challenges ahead would test not only his skills and courage, but also the very essence of what it meant to be a protector in a universe teetering on the brink of despair. As Arlen neared the sanctuary, the gauntlet's waypoints flickered erratically, casting an eerie glow across his path. The device, which had been steadfast until now, seemed to falter, its circuits pulsing with uncertainty. Arlen frowned, his instincts screaming that something was amiss. He glanced down at Kale, whose wide, luminous eyes mirrored the device's erratic light, as if sensing the tension in the air. The infant's calm demeanor wavered slightly, a subtle whimper escaping his lips. Suddenly, the ground beneath Arlen's feet quaked violently, sending him stumbling. He clutched Kale tightly, shielding the child as debris rained down around them. Emerging from the dust storm, a colossal figure loomed, Vortek himself, his biomechanical form towering above the landscape like a living nightmare. His massive frame was a grotesque fusion of flesh and machinery, with jagged metal protrusions jutting from his limbs and a visor-like mask concealing his face. The warlord's presence radiated menace, and his booming voice echoed through the canyon. "You cannot escape destiny, human," Vortek growled, his words laced with malice. "Hand over the child, and perhaps I'll grant you a swift death." Arlen's heart pounded as he steadied himself, his mind racing with options. He knew surrender wasn't an option, but facing Vortek alone seemed equally futile. The warlord advanced, his mechanical appendages whirring ominously, ready to strike. Desperation fueled Arlen's resolve. He had to protect Kale, no matter the cost. Summoning every ounce of courage, Arlen lunged toward a nearby rock formation, using it as cover while he assessed the situation. His military training kicked in, analyzing Vortek's movements and weaknesses. The warlord was powerful, but his bulk made him slower, and the terrain offered potential advantages. Arlen's gauntlet beeped insistently, drawing his attention. The device displayed a new set of coordinates, suggesting an alternate route to the sanctuary, a detour that might buy them precious time. Without hesitation, Arlen darted toward the new path, weaving through the rocky maze with agility honed by years of combat experience. Vortek roared in fury, giving chase and smashing through obstacles with brute force. The pursuit was relentless, each step echoing with the promise of impending doom. Arlen's muscles burned, and his lungs screamed for air, but he pushed on, driven by the knowledge that Kale's life depended on his perseverance. The chase led them to a precarious ledge overlooking a vast chasm. The gauntlet indicated that crossing it was their only chance to reach the sanctuary. With no other choice, Arlen leaped across, landing hard on the opposite side. He rolled to absorb the impact, cradling Kale protectively. Behind him, Vortek hesitated, calculating the jump. The warlord's confidence wavered, his mechanical calculations faltering at the risk. Seizing the moment, Arlen activated a secondary function on the gauntlet, a pulse emitter designed to disrupt mechanical systems. The device emitted a high-frequency wave, causing Vortek's biomechanical components to sputter and fail. The warlord stumbled, his balance compromised as his mechanical legs buckled under the interference. With Vortek temporarily incapacitated, Arlen dashed forward, putting distance between them. The sanctuary was within reach, its entrance marked by ancient symbols glowing faintly in the dim light. As he approached, the ground trembled again, signaling Vortek's recovery. The warlord's rage intensified, his mechanical enhancements roaring back to life as he resumed the chase. Reaching the sanctuary's threshold, Arlen hesitated, realizing the entrance required activation. The gauntlet interfaced with the door mechanism, but the process was agonizingly slow. Vortek closed in, his shadow looming large as he prepared to strike. Time seemed to stretch, each second an eternity as Arlen held his breath, praying the door would open in time. Finally, with a resounding click, the sanctuary doors slid open, revealing a safe haven bathed in soft, ethereal light. Arlen dove inside, the doors sealing shut behind him just as Vortek's massive fist slammed into the barrier. Safe for now. He collapsed to the floor, cradling Kale close as the reality of their narrow escape sank in. Inside the sanctuary, the air was cool and tinged with an otherworldly serenity, a stark contrast to the chaos outside. The walls shimmered with bioluminescent patterns, casting a gentle glow that illuminated the intricate carvings etched into the stone. Arlen, still catching his breath, looked around in awe. The designs depicted scenes of harmony and unity, alien figures intertwined with symbols of peace and prosperity. It was clear that this place was not just a refuge but a monument to hope, a testament to a time when cooperation and coexistence might have been possible. As he explored deeper, Arlen discovered a central chamber dominated by a pedestal, atop which rested an artifact similar to the one that had started this entire ordeal. This object, however, pulsed with a calming energy, its surface smooth and warm to the touch. Nearby, holographic projections flickered to life, displaying information in a language he couldn't understand. Yet, strangely, snippets of meaning seeped through, hinting at the artifact's purpose, to bridge divides, to heal wounds both physical and metaphysical. Arlen's thoughts drifted to Nyxera, imagining her reaction to this place. How she would marvel at the craftsmanship, at the ideals represented here. He wondered if she had known about this sanctuary, if it had been part of her plan all along. The idea comforted him, reinforcing the belief that she had entrusted him with a mission greater than mere survival. Kale, sensing the change in atmosphere, cooed softly, his tiny hands reaching out toward the glowing walls. Arlen smiled, a genuine warmth spreading through him despite the lingering fear. He realized that Kale wasn't just a symbol of hope. He was a beacon, drawing people, aliens and humans alike, toward something better. The child's presence here, in this sacred space, felt right, as if the universe itself had conspired to bring them together. Yet, even in this haven, Arlen couldn't shake the sense of urgency gnawing at him. Vortek was still out there, and the sanctuary's defenses, while formidable, were not impenetrable. He needed to find a way to leverage this place, to turn it into more than just a hiding spot. Perhaps the artifact held answers, or maybe the sanctuary's technology could aid in their fight against the warlord. As he contemplated his next move, a soft hum resonated through the chamber, growing louder until it enveloped the space. Startled, Arlen turned to see a holographic figure materialize before him, an elder, her form translucent yet commanding. She spoke in a melodic tone, her words translating seamlessly into his mind. "Welcome, guardian of the child. You have been chosen to uphold the legacy of unity. Use what you find here wisely, for the fate of many rests in your hands." The apparition faded as quickly as it had appeared, leaving Arlen with more questions than answers. Chosen. Legacy. The weight of these words settled heavily on his shoulders, mingling with the responsibility already weighing him down. Yet, amidst the confusion, a spark of determination ignited within him. If this place was indeed a bastion of hope, then he would ensure it fulfilled its purpose. With renewed resolve, Arlen set about exploring the sanctuary further, cataloging its resources and deciphering its secrets. Each discovery brought a mix of wonder and dread, knowing that the tools at his disposal could either save countless lives or become weapons in the wrong hands. As he worked, Cale watched him with curious eyes, occasionally reaching out to grasp at the air as if trying to grasp the enormity of their situation. Time blurred, moments stretching and compressing as Arlen delved deeper into the sanctuary's mysteries. Outside, the storm raged on, vortex fury unabated. But within these hallowed walls, a different kind of tempest brewed, one of possibilities and potential. Arlen knew that soon, he would have to leave this sanctuary, to face whatever awaited him beyond its protective embrace. Until then he would prepare, drawing strength from the hope embodied by the child in his arms and the legacy whispered by the ancient stones around him. In the heart of the sanctuary, Arlen sat cross-legged on the cool stone floor, Cale nestled comfortably in his lap. The infant gurgled happily, his tiny hands grasping at the glowing patterns projected onto the walls. Despite the dire circumstances, there was an undeniable charm in watching the child interact with this alien environment, his innocence a stark contrast to the weight of their mission. Arlen chuckled softly, marveling at how Cale managed to find joy even in such a tense situation. The humor wasn't lost on him. Here he was, a grizzled soldier reduced to playing babysitter to an interstellar toddler. He imagined what his old squadmates would say if they could see him now, probably cracking jokes about his newfound domestic skills. Yet, beneath the humor lay a profound realization. Caring for Cale wasn't just about survival, it was about nurturing hope. Each smile, each coo, reinforced the belief that this child represented a brighter future, a chance to mend the fractures tearing their worlds apart. As night fell, or what passed for night in this timeless sanctuary, Arlen found himself reflecting on the bonds formed in the crucible of conflict. Nyxora's decision to entrust him with Cale spoke volumes about the trust forged between them. It wasn't merely an act of desperation but a testament to the connection they had built, transcending species and circumstance. He remembered her fierce determination, her willingness to stand alone against insurmountable odds. That same spirit now coursed through him, fueling his resolve to protect Cale and honor Nyxora's sacrifice. The emotional weight of their journey pressed heavily on Arlen's heart. He missed Nyxora, worried for her safety, and silently vowed to make her proud. Their partnership, though brief, had reshaped his understanding of courage and camaraderie. It wasn't just about fighting side by side, it was about believing in something greater than oneself, about making choices that defined one's legacy. Amidst these reflections, Arlen continued to explore the sanctuary's depths, uncovering technologies and artifacts that hinted at untold power. Yet, with each discovery, he reminded himself of the responsibility that came with such knowledge. This place was a gift, a beacon of hope, and he intended to use it wisely. Whether it meant confronting Vortek directly or finding a way to unite disparate factions against a common enemy, Arlen was determined to honor the trust placed in him. As dawn broke over the sanctuary, casting new light on the ancient carvings, Arlen stood tall, Cale cradled securely in his arms. The path ahead was uncertain, fraught with peril and promise alike. But armed with the lessons learned and the bonds forged, he stepped forward, ready to face whatever challenges awaited. For in the eyes of the child he protected, he saw not just the future, but the embodiment of hope, a hope that, no matter the outcome, would endure. The decision to leave the sanctuary wasn't made lightly. Arlen stood in the central chamber, staring at the glowing artifact that had whispered secrets of unity and hope into his mind. He knew staying hidden would keep Cale safe for a while longer, but it wouldn't solve anything. Not the war raging outside, not Vortek's relentless pursuit, and certainly not Nyxora's fate. She had entrusted him with her child because she believed he could protect him, but Arlen couldn't shake the feeling that true protection meant reuniting Cale with his mother. He spent hours poring over the sanctuary's resources, gathering what supplies he could carry and studying its holographic archives for any information that might help. The Elder's cryptic message lingered in his thoughts: "You have been chosen to uphold the legacy of unity." What did that mean? Was it simply about keeping Cale alive, or was there something more, something larger, that he needed to do? Whatever the answer, one thing was clear: Nyxora deserved to be part of this fight too. If anyone could turn the tide against Vortek, it was her. With Kale secure in a makeshift sling across his chest, Arlen activated the gauntlet once again. Its waypoints flickered back to life, now guiding him toward coordinates just beyond the canyon where their paths had diverged. The device seemed hesitant at first, recalibrating as if sensing his determination. Finally, it settled on a route, one that would take them through hostile territory and straight into the heart of danger. The journey back was no less perilous than before. Vortex drones patrolled the skies like vultures circling carrion, their sensors scanning every inch of the landscape. Arlen moved cautiously, using the cover of night and the jagged terrain to stay out of sight. But stealth alone wouldn't be enough. He needed a plan. In the sanctuary, he discovered a small arsenal of defensive tools left behind by whoever had built the place. A sonic disruptor capable of disabling mechanical systems temporarily, a cloaking field generator that masked heat signatures, and even a prototype weapon designed to overload biomechanical implants. Each piece of equipment felt like a lifeline, though none guaranteed success. Still, they gave him hope, and hope was a powerful motivator. As dawn broke on the third day of travel, Arlen crested a ridge overlooking a battlefield scarred by destruction. Smoke rose from smoldering ruins, and the acrid stench of burning metal filled the air. It didn't take long to spot Nixera amidst the chaos. She fought with a ferocity that bordered on mythic, her movements fluid and precise despite the weariness etched into her face. Her exosuit was battered, scorched in places, but she wielded it like an extension of herself, slicing through enemies with devastating efficiency. Arlen's breath caught in his throat. Seeing her like this, alive yet clearly struggling, ignited a fierce determination within him. He couldn't let her face this alone anymore. Adjusting Kale's position against his chest, he activated the cloaking field generator and began descending toward her position. Nixera's golden eyes narrowed as she parried another attack from one of Vortek's elite enforcers. The biomechanical monstrosity towered over her, its claws sparking with energy as it lunged forward. Dodging the strike, she retaliated with a burst of plasma fire from her wrist-mounted blaster, scoring a direct hit on its core processor. The creature staggered, giving her a moment to breathe, but only a moment. She scanned the battlefield, searching for an opening, a weakness, anything that might give her the upper hand. Her body ached, her reserves nearly depleted, but she refused to yield. Every second she held out was another second Kale remained safe, another second closer to ensuring his future. And yet, doubt gnawed at her. Had she done the right thing in trusting him to Arlen? Would he truly make it to safety? Her thoughts were interrupted by a sudden commotion at the edge of the battlefield. A figure emerged from the smoke, clad in battered armor and carrying something small and bundled tightly against his chest. Nixera froze, her heart skipping a beat as recognition dawned. It was Arlen, and in his arms. "Kale," she whispered, the name slipping past her lips like a prayer. For a moment, time seemed to stand still. Then reality crashed back down as Vortek himself appeared, his massive form casting a shadow over the scene. His voice boomed across the battlefield, dripping with malice. "How touching," he sneered. "The human returns, bringing my prize directly to me." Arlen stepped forward, his stance defiant despite the overwhelming odds. "Your prize," he shot back, his voice steady. "This isn't your war, Vortek. Let her go, and maybe we can end this without further bloodshed." Vortek laughed, a deep, guttural sound that sent shivers down everyone's spines. "Bloodshed is all I know, human. Bloodshed and conquest. You think you can stop me?" Before Arlen could respond, Nixera sprang into action. With a roar born of desperation and fury, she launched herself at Vortek, her weapons blazing. The battle erupted anew, chaos consuming the battlefield as both sides clashed with renewed vigor. Arlen ducked behind a pile of rubble, shielding Kale from stray fire while trying to formulate a plan. The fight raged on for what felt like hours. Nixera fought with everything she had, her movements fueled by sheer willpower. Vortek matched her blow for blow, his biomechanical enhancements making him nearly unstoppable. Yet even he couldn't ignore the toll the prolonged engagement took on his systems. Sparks flew from his joints, and his visor cracked under Nixera's relentless assault. Seizing the opportunity, Arlen activated the sonic disruptor, aiming it squarely at Vortek's torso. The device emitted a high-pitched frequency that caused the warlord's mechanical components to seize up. Vortek roared in pain and rage, stumbling backward as his systems faltered. "Now!" Arlen shouted, tossing the prototype weapon to Nixera. Catching it mid-air, Nixera charged forward, planting the device squarely on Vortek's chest. With a deafening explosion, the weapon discharged, overloading his biomechanical core. Vortek collapsed, his massive frame crumbling to the ground in a heap of twisted metal and charred flesh. Silence fell over the battlefield as the remaining drones retreated, leaderless and disoriented. For a moment, no one moved. Then Nixera turned, her golden eyes locking onto Arlen's face. Slowly, she approached, her steps heavy with exhaustion but purposeful. "Kale," she murmured, reaching out tentatively. Arlen stepped forward, gently transferring the infant into her arms. Tears welled in her eyes as she cradled her son close, pressing her forehead to his tiny one. "Thank you," she whispered, her voice trembling with emotion. Arlen nodded, unable to speak past the lump in his throat. They stood there for a long moment, the weight of everything they'd endured settling between them. Finally, Nixera looked up, her expression softening. "You didn't have to come back," she said quietly. "You risked everything for us." "I couldn't leave you behind," Arlen replied, his tone firm but gentle. "We're in this together, remember?" Nixera smiled faintly, brushing a strand of hair from her face. "Together," she echoed. In the days that followed, they regrouped at the sanctuary, using its resources to heal and rebuild. Word spread of Vortek's defeat, and slowly, the tide of the war began to shift. Allies emerged from the shadows, drawn by the promise of unity symbolized by Kale's existence. Nixera became a beacon of hope, rallying those who had lost faith, while Arlen worked tirelessly to forge alliances and strategize their next moves. As Kale grew, so too did the bonds between them. Their shared experiences had forged a family unlike any other, a soldier, a warrior queen, and a child destined to bridge worlds. Together, they faced whatever challenges lay ahead, knowing that as long as they stood united, there was nothing they couldn't overcome. And so, amidst the ruins of war and the promise of peace, they found their happy ending, not in perfection, but in the knowledge that they had each other. As the sanctuary's glow bathed them in warmth, Nixera held Kale close, her heart full for the first time in years. Arlen stood beside her, his presence a quiet but unwavering pillar of strength. Together, they gazed at the stars through the ancient dome, symbols of hope etched into the heavens above. "We've been through hell," Nixera said softly, her voice laced with gratitude. "But we made it." Arlen nodded, smiling faintly. "And we'll keep making it, one step at a time." Kale cooed, reaching up to grasp Nixera's finger, as if sealing their bond anew. Outside, the winds of Zorathis howled, but inside, peace reigned. For the first time, Arlen felt like he truly belonged, to this family, to this mission, to something greater than himself. "No matter what comes next," Nixera whispered, "we face it together." And under the watchful eyes of the cosmos, they began their journey toward a brighter future, for themselves, and for all who dared to dream of unity.